The last year has been great. Working with Fox and Crow has been one of the big enablers for me to become semi-retired. We always had a very strong operations portion of the business, but our challenge was always the sales side. We could not get a sales engine that relied word. We didn't get stuck in a constant treadmill of that's not working, let's try this. It was just one thing after another, and we always felt like we were restarting. You do that for a year or two, and you come to the conclusion that it's the sales team. So either they would leave or we had to let them go and hire a new salesperson, in which case you're starting all over again. What we've really seen by working with Fox and Crow is that we started on a consistent path a year ago. And everything we've done since then has been building on that path. It's been increasing capability, increasing success, and from my perspective, knowing that on the sales side, I don't have to be tied up in the day to day. I don't have to be tied up in the details of every call, of every presentation. We certainly used other CRMs in the past. None of them were easy to use. None of them produced the information that I needed. None of them had what the sales team needed to stay on track. Membrane is a great tool, but then populated with Fox and Crow and knowledge base and learning materials really helps put the guardrails around it and keep everything on track. So that's where we started a year ago, trying to get our team, our salespeople familiarized with that. And they did, right? They're believers in it because it's strongly working. We finished last year with our best year we've ever had. Q4 of last year was our strongest sales quarter we'd ever had. Since the beginning of this year, Fox and Crow's added a number of enhancements. We put our salesperson into the coaching program, which has been great. But on top of that, the enhancements to that program, where you guys are starting to analyze the call recordings, analyze what happens in presentations, and provide extremely specific coaching advice. We're not in a situation anymore where we go, okay, we lost that one or it's not working. Why? There's a very specific analysis and very specific recommendations on behaviors, and then the supportive coaching to get the salesperson to implement those behaviors. You can't get much better than that, right? It's so directed. And there's no gimmick about it. We've done sales coaching in the past, and so often it's generic. It's not specific to our industry. It could be selling gaskets for a machine for all the specificity of it. And it doesn't take into account the differences in our industry. That's what's so important about the coaching here and the recommendations is they're not just specific, they're specific to our industry. There's that understanding and recognition of what causes calls and presentations to fail. There's bucket loads of MSPs out there of all different shapes and sizes, and everybody pitches the same thing and makes the same claims. A huge challenge we always have had is, okay, so how do we differentiate ourselves in that market? And the coaching, the analysis, the recommendations are allowing us to do that. We're not looking for gimmicks anymore. And I think that's the hugest thing. We're very data driven, KPI driven, and we can get that now. We can see what's happening with that now. We're more successful in the first 6 months of this year than the success we had all of last year. So we're in great shape, but we have had a few challenges, and the new coaching technologies really has enabled us to look at that and go, all right, this is why this isn't working. We need to do this. and it's very targeted. And the peace of mind that I get from that has been huge. I've got the sales machine now. Might have to tweak it here, tweak it there. It's an ever changing world, but we've got a way of doing that, which we never had before. And it makes all the difference in the world. It's one thing to just make a bunch of calls, right? And we had somebody that was doing that and they weren't successful. It's the ongoing weekly feedback, allowing the rep to modify his approach, to learn from the coaching, and suddenly having really strong success with it. So the fact that it leads directly to concrete results has, again, made a big difference. And I think it was that analysis of call recordings to give very specific pinpointed recommendations down to the level of, on this call with this prospect, you did this, and this is what happened. That's very specific. I have a sales meeting every Monday that's 45 minutes tops, and I'll check the CR probably once a day. So the total time that I spend interacting with you guys, I certainly don't spend more than 2 hours a week at this point. The technical people that backstop the sales team on presentations and things, they're spending a little bit more time in the direct sales role, more of a sales engineer, but they're not having to spend any time on sales strategy or looking at reports or any of that thing. They simply plug in when they need to. One of the challenges that I think happens a lot in our industry is that you'll get prospects who have a need that's adjacent to what you really do, and they're not a good fit. But in a sales environment where FTAs, proposals, and closes are not something that you can predict, your tendency is to go, we don't really do that, but we're going to try and close it because it looks like decent money. And you end up twisting your company around these prospects to fit their need. Now, because we have a lot more confidence in this mechanism that will produce new customers for us, we have a much better idea of who our ideal customer is. We've gotten pretty religious about saying no. And that's one of the big things that's happened out of this is having the ability to say they aren't a qualified lead for us. We're going to say no to that. Working with Fox and Crow has enabled the operations team to better understand the process and now work with the sales team. And we've even started utilizing some AI stuff to analyze those meetings ourselves to say it's a 85% match with our ideal customer profile rather than just, hey, we'll try and take whatever we can get. That again is huge because that means I don't have to sit here and make those judgments and make those calls all the time, right? The team is educated and understands what we're trying to do. So it really has been a game changer.
So in your opinion, who's the right fit for Fox and Crow?
I think the good fit are growing MSPs who are trying to move to a higher level of maturity, who have struggled with the sales process, which is extremely common in our industry. It's got to be the biggest challenge to developing a mature MSP, who are interested in organic growth and who have maybe tried the outsourced sales approach and gotten burnt by that. We certainly did. We spent a lot of money on that. If they look and see, gosh, we've tried cold email, we've tried this, we've tried that, we just can't seem to make anything work, Fox and Crow is a great match, right? The folks who are probably not a good match for Fox and Crow are your primary model of growing your MSP is through acquisition, such that you're looking to get acquired by a PE firm within 2 years or something like that. Leadership's focus is not on building a sales organization, but if you're trying to build an MSP organically, that's great. The other thing I've seen in some of the peer coaching folks that were in with our rep, if you're not ready to take this advice that Fox and Crow is going to provide, and you think that I'm going to invest 6 weeks and Fox and Crow is going to push some magic button to inspire my sales rep without changing any of their process, you're not ready. Don't come in, right? I was owner-led sales. Trying to make the transition to a sales team, even if it's just one other rep, that person is not going to sell the same way that you do in owner-led sales. They can't. They're not the owner. And yet, many MSP owners believe, just go do what I did. It won't work. And so you can't control that salesperson that way. You have to let them do what they're being taught. And that means the biggest thing as the owner that you need to do is shut up and listen, allow them to do what they're being told. And they're going to do some stuff that's going to be very different than what you did in owner-led sales. We probably had a little bit of concern in that certainly we tried cold calling in the past. It didn't work. And you hear from all sorts of sales coaches about how cold calling is dead and it's all about inbound and those kinds of things. It's very doable. It works if you're doing it right. And yeah, you hear that it doesn't work, but in fact it does. Frankly, it works better than things like cold emails. There's a lot of activity, but sustained activity is the core of it. You've just got to do it. It's a numbers game combined with the right technique for the calls, right? You can't do one and not the other. You can call a lot, but if you don't know what you're doing, you won't get the FT. You can be great on the phone, but if you never pick it up, you're not going to get there. So you got to do both of those things. One of the biggest changes and a bit of a mind shift for us has been because so much of our new customer acquisition in the past was referral based. When you get a referral, you're 75 or 85% of the way there already. It's not a difficult close, but cold call generated FTAs and leads are much earlier in the process. And it's a different selling experience, a different selling process that takes a lot of coaching. And I think there are owners who don't get that and don't understand why that process is taking longer than closing everything through referral. And so they're impatient and they go, this isn't working and I'm not going to do it. Like I said, we had done cold calling in the past, and working with Fox and Crow, the cold calls are much more on point, right? We don't do damage to the brand with the way we're calling now. We don't make the mistakes that make people angry, and we're much more efficient than we used to be. We can do 100 calls in a third of the time that it used to take us, and we get much better results. We are on a steady upward path every single month. We're adding new customers. We're adding business at existing customers. We're growing the business reliably. How's things going? They're going great. And we've got the KPIs that prove it. This has led us on a very virtuous cycle, and I can't see us ever not following that path.